Yeah, there's a serious question. Because I was just thinking what I can do now. I think I just want to bring this a bit closer so that I don't have the feeling, I'm not talking loud enough. Because when you're talking to liars, they tend to not hear what you're trying to say to them, right? They have like stuff in their ears, so they can't hear you, right? They're always listening for something else because they think they know better, right? So the question is, are you a liar? And how would you know? Because when you are a liar, you probably are afraid that you are a liar. And that's, I really don't like liars. I really have something against them. It's not that I hate them, but they're just really annoying. Because they're just running around, because they're just lying all the time, and so they have to run around to make up for their lies. And in German there is a saying which basically says, lies have short legs. Because when you start telling a lie, you will realize that you have to run extra fast so that you can catch up with them. And if you're interested in the general topic, the movie Liar, Liar is probably quite interesting if you want to understand if you are a liar. Because you probably might even lie to yourself about lying. You probably say things like, yeah, no, it was just an excuse. Because if you see it from this point, it's actually not a lie. Because somehow it's true. That's like liar logic. So you always shape reality in the way that suits you, although reality does not coincide with the idea you're just pushing on it. So, for instance, there are people out there who would simply tell a lie about, yeah, I managed to solve this. It's like some people are really habitual liars. And it makes me so angry. Sometimes I just want to punch these people in the face because I always fall for their lies. Or I have fallen, now I don't fall for them anymore. But the problem is for them, they want something. But because they keep lying all the time, they'll never get it. Because if you keep telling lies, life is going to punish you in a way. Because if you're trying to cheat your way into heaven, you won't get very far. Because when you try to feel good and happy, and everything that people think you are is a lie because you always tell lies like everybody else, then what does that mean for you specifically? Well, for example, right now, do I really feel like talking here? Absolutely no. I really don't want to talk right now. I don't want to sit here. I don't want to talk. And the reason is because I'm a little bit angry. Day in and day out, I just have to get this off my chest. I'm sitting down here and I'm trying to give people something that they can work with. I'm talking about all kinds of things. But people are so slowly. Like nobody seems to be interested. And that's just really shit. And so every day I sit down here and I'm trying to think, maybe it's not the right thing after all. Maybe I should just get a normal job. Maybe what I'm doing is really terrible. And then I start thinking, yeah, well, these people are just all idiots. Right? Because if it's not me, it surely has to be them. I mean, it could also be both of us, but of course it also could be none of us. You see, I am able to shift my perspective, and a liar generally always pushes the blame on the other person, or only pushes it on him or herself. So you can lie to yourself about who's at fault. So you can say, yeah, this person did this and blah, 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 right? And then you can get really angry at other people so that you can lie to yourself about having done really well. Oh yeah, you've done really well. Like, it's not your fault that the relationship ended. Yeah, but you were a part of the relationship, and apparently you could have done more, but maybe you even wanted to have discussions, because maybe you even wanted it to end, so maybe your behavior created friction on purpose. Because maybe you got into a relationship and you weren't really honest about it. You know, these things happen. You know, I've been there many times. I've found myself in relationships and then I just wanted to get out of it. And when I then found somebody who I actually didn't want to get out of, I really struggled. That's then how it is, because I never learned how to keep somebody close, especially like in that case a woman, right? I never learned that because nobody ever really taught me how I could do that specifically with the way I am, because not everybody is like me. So I had to learn that myself. And some people, they just pretend to be other people. I don't really want to talk about this. You know, I don't really know why I'm talking again, because you know why I'm talking again now? You know, it's about honesty. You know, I'm asking the question, are you a liar? It's actually directed at myself, right? It's not really directed at anybody specifically who might or might not listen to this. It's just something, you know, where I have to open up in front of the public and say everything that I'm lying about. So what am I lying about? Am I lying about that I like to record myself in live sessions? Maybe I lie about that I like to write books. And maybe I lie about a lot of things. Well, in a way it's true. Because to be honest, I really don't feel like it. But feeling like it or not doesn't really mean that you're lying. Because lying would be, right? I like what I'm doing. You know, that's now the truth. I generally like what I'm doing, but what really pisses me off is that nothing is happening. I mean, sure, things are happening, but it's really slowly, right? It's like occasionally somebody subscribes and then somebody stops subscribing, and the subscribers that I do have, which I don't really understand why people subscribe to your channel but they don't spend time with your content, you know, that's something that really, really angers me. I mean, not just a bit. That just makes you really angry, because you think, why do you subscribe to a channel when you don't spend time with the content? What's the purpose of subscribing to a channel? And I have the same scenario on Instagram. I mean, there's people that follow me, but nobody likes my images. You know, that's the kind of feedback that you would like to have as a creator. But on the other hand, of course, you can't really expect people, because I'm posting a lot of videos, like really, really a lot of videos. I'm posting a lot of stuff. I mean, who's supposed to watch all of that? You know, maybe it's overwhelming. Maybe people feel like, oh, it's too much, I don't know what to pick. But what can I do about that? You know, it's not my problem that you cannot choose. I mean, if you can't make a choice, then you have to learn how to choose something. And then you choose something and then you just stick with it. But that's something you cannot do when you tell a lie. Because when you tell a lie, then you either have to struggle super hard to maintain that lie so that people will never find out that you've lied about this. And there are so many factors, right? Because people pick up on that kind of stuff. You know, I know it. Because people sometimes, they listen to what you're saying. And when you keep saying the same kind of stuff, you know, there's this kid. You know, I meet a lot of young people that are constantly lying about everything. Literally everything you ask them, they answer with a lie. Because they try to create an image of themselves that's like super cool. And I'm often wondering if I've been like this. But I actually don't remember. I don't think I've ever been like this. I usually got into trouble, you could say, because I was too honest, and then people said, don't be so honest. You know, I sometimes, surely, maybe I was stretching the truth a bit, but the kind of lies that people are telling, like the really obvious lie. I mean, I would get into a relationship, but when I would have days where I would feel bad, I just felt bad, you know. I didn't pretend to like the person. I tried to like the person, but I didn't pretend to like them. And there's people that are so weird, like seriously weird. And there's this young kid, he's 17. And he came to me, he always walks around in a suit, like. That's already something I don't get. Like, why would you dress like that? Yeah, because that's what you get from politicians. You think if you dress like this, you know, you're super cool. And then he would tell all these kinds of lies. How he's already a developer, right? How he earns 25,000 euros a month. Or he has that kind of money on his bank account or something. How he does all kinds of things. How he goes running all the time. How he goes hiking all the time. How he spends time with his dad. But then sometimes he says, you know, he lets a bit of the truth leak out. But then he keeps lying. And then you realize at one point, he just cannot handle the truth. The truth would literally destroy him. Because his trauma is so great that he has to keep pretending. Because if he wouldn't do that, this whole image that he has created, this whole thing that made him feel strong, would crumble down in front of him. And maybe you could say it's a bit mean. Oh. That I'm so angry with people that lie. But to be honest, you know, of course I'm just angry with myself. Because sometimes I would spend time with people. I actually didn't want to spend time with them. I actually wanted to be alone, but I didn't have the balls to be alone. And then I found myself in the company of people that were holding me back because they weren't as interested in doing what I wanted to do, but I had a problem to do it alone. So I often found myself in the company of people because I thought it would be easier to do what I want to do when I had company, and then I realized it actually wasn't, because they were holding me back. And then at some point I just stopped with that. So in a sense you could say, yeah, sure, I was often lying, but the way I see it, you know, I didn't go around saying, you know, I earn money that I don't have. Okay, I remember once something that I did. Actually, I didn't lie about that. You know, I borrowed my father's car and I went to the Netherlands to look at a house to rent. And I said that I have applied for a job, which was true. I had applied for a job. And I had told the company that I would only work for them for 70,000 euros a year. Because that was the worth that I was giving myself, because I know that's the kind of work that I can do, because you know I know how my mind works. I know that I'm quite smart. And so I thought, you know, if I tell people, listen, this is my price, right? Listen, this is my price. If you want to employ me, you have to pay 70,000 euros, you know, because I'm not working below that. And then they said, yeah, sorry, but that's too expensive. And I said, okay, I'm not interested. You know, I told them what I can do. I told them what my potential is, but they didn't like me. And that's often the problem that I get. You know, sometimes I apply for jobs that I actually don't want, but then I'm honest enough, and when I realize I actually don't want it, I just quit. When I was working in the cinema, I just didn't go there anymore at one point, because I just hated it. And if I would have told them, I would have just shouted at them, and I would have had to explain myself. But I just didn't have the emotional capacity to communicate that I just don't want to go there anymore. You know, because I just started to really hate that place. Like I really started to hate that place where I was working. So bad, everyone in there. So one day I just woke up and I decided I just won't go there anymore. And then I just stopped going, and I put my phone on flight mode, and I said, all right, you know, I'm just gonna wait now. You know, these people are adults. You could say it's a crisis, at least for me emotionally. I cannot call anyone. I cannot even send a message. I just knew that's how it's gonna be. And then I waited. And a couple of days later, I turned on my phone again and I received a message, and then I called, and then we talked about it, and then I was told, yeah, you should have better done this or that. And I said, yeah, but I couldn't have done it. Yeah, but it would have been better if you just would have given us a quick notice. Yeah, but at that moment, it was impossible. So I tried to tell them that I would have done it, and they said I could have done it different. But I said I couldn't have. Which feels true. You know, I don't really know. You know, sometimes I'm not quite sure. You know, sometimes I also just like to play with people a bit. You know, I'm a bit like a cat sometimes. So sometimes I just ignore people. Knowingly. I just ignore them. Because I want to give them something to work with. You know, I could always reach out to everyone all the time. But I already have courage, right? I already have courage. I don't have to prove that anymore. I know I have courage. I've proven that to myself and the people who know me, who also appreciate that in me, that I have courage, and that I'm super honest about everything, that I just tell the truth. You know, if I don't like something, I just say that. Otherwise, I just say nothing. You know, I often, I wait for a really, really long time until somebody pisses me off so much. You know, until that point, I say nothing. But when that point is reached, I just drop them a really precise line, because first I have to know what their game is. First I have to see through their little schemes. And until that point is reached, I'm really friendly. I'm really friendly. But when they start to look down on me more and more, because that's usually what happens. You spend time with people and you are nice to them. And in the beginning they're like, oh yeah. Yeah, no, they're still respectful. But then after a while they start to be really shit. Like they don't show up to your appointments anymore. And maybe I get it, right? It's like emotionally traumatizing. Because this young kid I was talking about, right? He has like father issues and stuff. So every time he sees me, he's confronted with his father issues. Because I'm 34 years old. I'm like his dad. When he's 17, I'm like his father. You know, I get that. And I also get it that he doesn't really understand it because he probably kind of loves me. At the same time, he hates me, or he thinks he hates me. At least I show him emotions of hate. He probably would just move in with me if I would ask him. But I feel like, how is that even possible? Because he would just piss me off all the time. At least that's what I think. You know, I don't know. But also don't have a space right now where anybody could move in, right? So, you know, sometimes I just get angry at lies because I just think, you know, nobody has to lie. But that's the thing, right? You can see through that. You can literally see through people's lies because when they are talking, truth always is there on the other side. So if you actually would listen to what they're actually saying and who's suggesting what, then you also know if they're speaking the truth or not. A great example to learn about liars is Bill Gates. You just have to watch interviews with Bill Gates and you know how a liar looks like. Right? He starts talking, and then what does he do? He always stops. Or he says something and then in the middle he corrects himself and then he's like, he looks like this? It's like really phony. He's a really phony guy and he's one of the most powerful people in the world. Just like let that sink in a little. So it's really worth your while to learn how liars look like. And liars are often people that, you know, are within society and they try to uphold a certain image of themselves. A really good example for liars are actors. I often watch movies. Because they're literally, actors are paid liars. They're being paid to lie. You know, like politicians, they're being paid to lie about the real intentions. Oh, I want to help you. No, you want money. You know, just say that. You want our money. Just be honest about it. I mean, you're not raising tax for fun all the time. We really want to help you. No, you want money. Because if it would be about helping us, you wouldn't drive around in expensive cars, and you wouldn't wear all these expensive suits, and you wouldn't throw weddings with tax money or fly to other countries with tax money. You would be really humble, right? You would live in a very simple apartment. You would live with the rest of the people, but you don't want that. You want to be above them, and so you take their money to allow yourself certain things because you say, oh yeah, because I'm doing a service to the country, you know, I can have extra benefits. Yeah. You know, when you talk about, you know, the kind of stuff that's going on, a lot of the stuff that inspires my music also is understanding what's really happening. You know, I sometimes make songs and then I'm reading them afterwards, or I hear them when after I've sung them, and then I only understand what I've actually written there. You know, I draw the line, I make the connection, and then you realize there's one. I don't have to read that, or wait. Telling you, following your passion sometimes is a real bitch. I'm not just saying that, it's just like it is. Toxicity. Okay, so listen to this. This is the song Shan't I. I haven't released that yet, but it's already done. Okay. Okay, I just start here. You've choked. Let's start here. No. So, you've choked the cat and made us fat and fed us shit to make us quit. So we stand down and let you clowns rule this world, choke us in turds and keep us small. That's how you roll. But here I am, and here we stand against corruption and greedy men that make those jokes on our costs, that floss their teeth with silken sheets while we inhale toxicity from laziness, no mind for chess, too dumb to live, too poor to give, no love. So what does that mean in essence? It means that we are being ruled by people who are all liars, who are standing on top and do like da 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 da. You know, I'm driving around in expensive cars, right? That's how they live. I'm driving around in an expensive car. You paid for my suit. And while you stand every day in a really shitty factory and inhale toxins, I have my own island. Right? That's roughly how it goes. I mean, you have somebody on top like Elon Musk or someone who like walks around, I have found a Tesla. Yeah, good for you, man. And he's okay that his workers work in really bad conditions, while he has like a super big mansion and all kinds of stuff. You know, he's okay with that. And that's how his children are being raised. You know, of course, his children still can make their own choices, but that's generally how it is. Rich people let all the poor people work for them, and they have an interest that the poor people stay poor, and they just have to live in all that toxic stuff. You know, it's not just these mine workers somewhere across the globe. I mean, it's also us. Right? I mean, the whole streets, they're all toxic. I mean, in that sense, of course, we all live in the same shit. But, you know, you don't see me driving around in a Bentley and wearing 2,000 euro suits. You don't see me doing that. And I wouldn't do it because it's phony. I would hate that. You know, now you have to think, is that the truth? Well, you can just see what happens. Right? If you ever see me like this, I allow you to scratch my car and rip my suit to shreds. You know, if I ever should get to that point, I don't know, just throw an egg at me. so that I realize, oh shit, man, you caught me. I got trapped. I got hooked by that nonsense. So I generally try to, because I have certain ideals. But the thing is, when you have ideals, you also have to be true to them. Because you can go around and say, I stopped watching porn, and then you go home and you watch porn. And then people come and ask you, and how's it going? Have you still not watched porn? And then you say, yeah, it's going really well. It's actually, now it's super easy. I don't need it at all anymore. And then because you lied, you feel ashamed, and then you go home and you masturbate twice. Or 5 times as hard, because now you feel ashamed that you've lied, and then you feel even more miserable. So it's much better to just say, yeah, damn it. I just gave in. I tried, but at least, I managed for 2 days. That's already better than not at all, right? And then you try again. Because if you're honest, you can acknowledge what you have accomplished. But when you're lying, you got nothing. You're just eating sawdust. And you're wondering why you aren't getting any fuller. Why am I not gaining weight? I'm eating sawdust all the time. Right? Yeah, well, because. It's obvious, isn't it? So, right, are you a liar? Some lies are really hard to unmask. But if you're just deadly honest, one reason why I liked doing this podcast, which is how it started, is because I could just catch me lying. I would just say something, and then I would realize, wait, I actually didn't do that. And then I would correct myself, and then I would say, wait, it's actually not true. So when I sit here, right, you caught me in the beginning, and I said, I actually don't feel like talking now. And you can literally tell how that opened me up. Because I was honest in the beginning, I said I don't feel like it. I started to open up, and suddenly I'm having a good time again. Right? Suddenly I'm smiling because I allowed myself the moment where I could say, sometimes I really don't like doing this because I feel like I'm not being appreciated for what I'm doing. While I think I'm actually doing a great service, I'm worth watching. I really think people should spend time and listen to me because I have a lot to give. A lot of experience, a lot of insight, and in a way, probably a good mood, right? You can jump on that smile. You can hitchhike my smile for a while if you want to do that. And, right, if nobody watches your stuff, it's always like 15 seconds because people are afraid of what you're gonna say. Or, I cannot trust him yet. I cannot trust him yet. I first have to get to know him. It's like, what the fuck, man? Just open up already. This is so stupid. People are so slow to open up to anything. As soon as you touch them anywhere, they're like, oh, don't touch me there. I still need time. Alright, then take your time. And that's the thing when you start to awaken and to enlighten and you get rid of all your trauma. When you should ever do that, then you will understand why I spent so much time alone. It's not that I spent so much time alone because I really hate people. It's just that people can't really deal with me. Because as soon as I start doing my thing, they don't know how to engage with me. If I try to talk to people, because I don't do small talk, right? I don't go around and talk about bad weather, right? If somebody comes and says, yeah, the weather is really bad today, then I say, well, technically bad weather doesn't exist. It's a fabrication. Because if you look at it, what's bad weather to a deer? It doesn't exist. A deer does not know bad weather, right? There's just weather. It's raining, then it's raining. You know, it just accepts its position in life right now and then it deals with it. But if you go around and you think there's something like bad weather, if you think a rainy and misty day, or generally rainy days and misty days and windy days mean that it's bad weather, then you're gonna have like 75% of your life that is going to be miserable. And so you can see, are you a liar? You can lie about a lot of things. But it's just a concept in your mind, because what's already a lie? What does duality mean? Duality means that if you look at a coin, then you can see the coin as a whole, right? There is one coin. You have that, right? There's a coin. And then you take that coin and then you say, the coin only has a number on it. The coin only has a number. There's only one side to the coin, and that's the good side. It's like, what? No, the coin has always two sides, right? There's a number and there is some kind of picture, right? So a coin always has two sides. So if you're walking around and you say like, this is bad weather for who? Like, how can you say that a rainy day is bad weather? How can you say that? Because without rain, we ain't got no plants, man. Without rain, what are you going to drink? You know, without rain, what is going to clean the earth? Nothing. So how can you say that a rainy day is bad weather? You know, when I wake up and I see it's raining, then I think, nice. I can feel really good about staying inside today. Yoo-hoo! Or, you know, maybe I really want to go outside, but in a way I'm kind of a comfort junkie. You know, I could also go outside. You know, I could do that. But I could also say, wow, it's raining. I have a reason to stay inside. How nice is that? And sometimes I could also go outside, but I don't really, you know, I don't like wet clothes. I just don't like it. You know, okay, I get it. If it's a warm summer rain, but then I wouldn't want to wear clothes. Then I would just want to wear nothing, or like short trousers. Probably more like bathing, like swimming shorts, right? I probably wouldn't want to wear a sweater like this, and I probably wouldn't want to wear normal trousers because it just gets really uncomfortable to walk in these things. And maybe that's just the problem of these times that we are living in, because if you would wear natural materials such as wool, you know, that stuff also keeps you warm when it's wet. And yeah, I don't have a lot of experience with that, but I've heard that it's supposed to be like this, right? Because, you know, wool comes from sheep, and sheep are a lot outside generally. So, you know, they have an interest to stay warm even if it's cold. Of course, that doesn't work when humans come and shave it off. But there's like a natural, I think there's like fat in wool sheep. And so, you know, how, it just doesn't make sense. So when you want to tell a lie, you just have to start catching yourself. You know, listen to what you're actually saying, because some people, they don't actually listen to what they're saying. They're just lying out of habit, so you really have to start listening to what you're saying. And if in your mind you're always complaining about bad weather, well, then you have to work on that. And just start seeing the beauty of rain. And just spend more time in nature. And quiet down a little. But really start listening to your thoughts. Oh my God. see, for that you also need focus. Just like I needed focus to solve the Rubik's Cube, because if I don't keep my focus, I just forget how to solve it. Even though I've done it already, probably 100 times, if I don't pay attention, then I'm out of it. So truth also means, if you want to speak the truth and be honest and really live truly to your ideals, you have to pay attention to what you're saying and to what you're doing. And you always have to keep that image in your mind of who you actually want to be, or who you feel like you deserve to be, or who you can be when you would live up to your true potential. So a lie can also be, I need this or I need that. For a while you actually think that's true, but after a while you realize actually don't need that. But for that you need experience. You need experience to know how much food you need. So if you don't know, if you've never fasted, how are you supposed to know how it feels like to never eat anything? And I realized at one point, I don't want to be like the mob. I don't want to be a sheep. I don't want to be one of these idiots that, when the state announces the pandemic, I'll just let that stand like this. Everybody runs to the supermarket and loads up on toilet paper. Like, that's the worst thing that can happen to you, that you run out of toilet paper. It's just a bunch of idiots. And even the people that say, yeah, I'm not really bothered by it, and suddenly they have 5 packets of toilet paper at home. While I was taking a completely different standpoint. I said, alright, if we don't have toilet paper anymore, I'm just gonna clean myself with water, which is much hygienic and also uses less water. Why? Because in the production of toilet paper you need a lot of water, because you also have to consider that in order to produce toilet paper you first have to grow trees. Even if it's recycled toilet paper, you need a lot of water to recycle paper. It's a really, really expensive process. So people think, oh, I buy recycled water, toilet paper, that's much better. No, it's not. It's just a marketing trick. It takes up a lot of energy. And where does that energy come from? I don't know, maybe from burning trees. Yeah, it's all bullshit. There is no clean energy. Maybe the real Tesla, the real Nikolai Tesla was onto something. But the kind of energy that is actually clean is being kept in drawers by large corporations. I mean, you hear these stories that there are people who developed a car that was running on water quite a distance and safely and at a considerate speed. And what happened? These people, they start to vanish. So they do these things only underground, because nobody has an interest in that kind of stuff, because the industry cannot make money with that. So there is no clean energy available at the moment, and no country has an interest to make that available in the future, unless we really start to say that's what we want. Because if you think, I'm just gonna trust the government that they're gonna provide us with renewable energies. Do you know what renewable energies? That's like one of the biggest lies of all. I mean, take these windcrafts, how you call them, right? These energy power plants with wind. The fiber that's being used to make them, that's glass fiber. And it's a very, I've had a friend who was working on that, and his job was to try and figure out what you can actually do with that stuff after these wind power plants have used up their time, you basically can do nothing with it, because the fiber is glass. So when it breaks, it's broken. You can't do shit with that anymore. So it's just waste. So what are you gonna do with it? Either burn it, just burn it, or throw it into the ocean probably, or just the same that you do with nuclear waste. You just dig a hole and put it in there. That's what they're doing. That's everything. What do you think is going to happen to the batteries? What do you think is going to happen to the batteries? For all these electric cars. These things are really heavy. I've heard that the battery from a truck weighs something like 10 tons. Even if it's 5 tons. Think of all that toxic stuff that's in there. And then maybe that's gonna last 2 years. Maybe. Some even only 6 months. I've heard of electric bikes where the battery didn't work anymore after 6 months. You could also simply buy a bike and cycle with your own power. Just get strong. So sometimes people are really lying about why they want electric cars, right? They say, oh, it's good for the environment. Do you actually believe that? Are you that gullible? Are you really that gullible? Because the reason you're saying that, I don't think they actually believe it. They just say it because it makes them look good. Like, oh yeah, I'm pushing the industry. It's good for the environment. And I started to walk around and I just started asking people questions. And when I see that they have an electric bike, I say, do you actually think that an electric bike is good for the environment, or why do you have it? And then they say, yeah, well, because it's easier. Because they're too lazy. And I get that. It is quite tough. If you want to cycle everywhere, every day, it is quite tough. But then I would rather drive a car with fossil fuels, because that's much cleaner. It's much cleaner than electric cars. Electric cars, just think about it. When you walk through here, you walk through the country. Have you ever walked underneath these giant towers that transport electricity? It's like, imagine you live there. No wonder people get cancer all the time. Imagine you live underneath one of these things. When I go there, you can literally feel the buzzing of the electricity. So at what cost are we producing that kind of stuff? It's like really, really bad. Really bad. And we're surrounded by this kind of stuff. If I would choose, I would just live somewhere in the forest. But there you cannot really reach out to people. So I also feel like I have to take responsibility for that kind of stuff. Anyway, I was talking about liars, but this is like such a vast topic. You can talk about liars in all kinds of ways. But yeah, okay, I get it. This was about, are you a liar? So all you can basically do to figure out whether you're lying or not is just you have to start listening to what you're actually saying. Because when you're just running around and you just repeat stuff that other people say because you think that's, gonna make you look really smart, then you're really dumb. Because if you just say things that other people have said before you, because you think, that's the right thing to say, then in my book, you're a real idiot. And you wouldn't last 5 seconds in my presence. That's just how it is. Because I pick up on these things. I know right away if somebody knows what they're talking about. Because I just have to look at them. If somebody goes around and they say they meditate a lot. I sometimes meet people, these spiritual people, they're really good at lying. spiritual people. They don't know what spirituality is about. They just want to be like, oh yeah, it's so nice. Yeah, it's so much better now that I'm spiritual. But you've changed nothing, right? It's like, oh yeah, but you're in the same place, just a different story. Oh yeah, I'm spiritual now. So you wear different clothes and you think that's it. You think that's gonna take care of it. I'm spiritual now, that's the solution. No, it's not. It's just bullshit. It's just people that are idiots, they're just living in a fantasy. Because just the word, I'm spiritual, will not change anything. You also have to make the right choices, right? You have to face all your darkness. I've met people that were saying, they were like breathing instructors, right? They were doing like breath work, yeah? And they were even giving courses for doing breath work. And then they would say, yeah, I do breath work all the time. Every morning. I know how hard it is to keep such a routine going. And if I would keep such a routine going, I would be probably even more intimidating. More intimidating than I already am. So I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about because I've done breath work. And that's really hard for me. I fainted a couple of times, and I started the same with psychedelics. I started to really, really develop a lot of respect for certain techniques. I started to develop a lot of respect for psychedelics, and I started to develop a lot of respect for breath work. Because that stuff sometimes knocked me out. I mean, a lot of stuff sometimes really, really knocked me out, where I thought, that's it now. It's like the stinging nettle, what I've told you about. That stuff really, really knocked me out. So I'm a bit more careful with it. So if I hear people saying, yeah, I do breath work every day, but they start shivering when they're going, when we're going swimming in a lake in winter, I know it's bullshit. Because if you would do breath work every day, you wouldn't have problems with that kind of stuff. Because the only reason people are shivering when it's cold is because their energy can't flow properly. And their body is trying to push through that. And when you're doing breath work, it's like cleanses all your energy and stuff. And I clearly haven't done that enough because I'm still really tense. And sometimes I sit down and I do this and I stretch out my chest and then I get dizzy. And then I feel like my hands are getting really tingly, right? I was sitting once in the sauna and I started slapping my shoulders to loosen them up like this and then like this, and everybody was like, what's that guy doing? And 10 minutes into the sauna session, my hands started to vibrate so strongly that I didn't know how to stand it anymore, and I just had to leave because I was like, oh my god, what's happening? This is how intense spirituality is if you're really using the methods that are being prescribed and you really go to the limit, because you have to go to the limit. If you don't go to the limit, there's nothing gonna happen. Because that means if you don't go to the limit, you didn't challenge your fear. You have to go to the limit. Otherwise, you cannot push through your own boundaries, right? So people, sometimes they use psychedelics, they take too little because they're afraid. Then you cannot push through it. And when I smoke, I generally smoke until I've had enough, and then I sit with that, and that sometimes is like a fist in the face. And that's why I don't really smoke anymore, because I've become so sensitive to that stuff. I rather stay away from it. I rather do here my dancing and my moving around, I like that a bit better because that actually makes me stronger, so that I can also hold the energy that is being released in such moments. And so when somebody says to me, yeah, I'm doing breath work every day, and he looks like this, then I know such bullshit. Because if he would do that, he would look like a chief from the Amazon, like, bam, right? He would look like, I would have real respect for him. He was like, whoa, that guy is the real deal. But most people that I meet are just frauds. They just say, yeah, I'm doing breath work every day. No, that's what they wish. So it's a fantasy, and they say it like it's a fact. And I just stopped believing this kind of stuff. Because I actually started looking at, what am I seeing, right? What am I seeing? What are people saying? And what does it look like to me? But for that, of course, I had to gain experience. How do people actually look like? How do they feel like? How do you feel in their presence? And it turned out that most people are indeed liars. Because I have done a lot of the things that people say that they're doing. And so I can tell whether somebody's telling the truth or whether they are really doing it. Or whether they know what they're talking about. And that guy that said he was doing breath work every day, I went to his apartment and it was an absolute mess. I mean, it was even worse than my apartment during its worst times, probably. It was really bad. And then I thought, like, if you're doing breath work every day, then why is your apartment such a mess? It doesn't make sense. And it doesn't make sense. Because that's the apartment of a person that's depressed and that's like really heavy. But a person who does breath work every day isn't heavy. It's like a super motivated person, like Wim Hof, running around the world, swimming in glaciers, running barefoot up, Kilimanjaro. Wow, right? That's the kind of person that does breath work every day, like really does it. And that's also the kind of person that can meditate. Right? If you see these people, they have crooked feet, they have arched backs, you can see there's not a muscle on their entire body. And they say, yeah, I'm meditating every day. How are you supposed to do that? If I want to meditate, I have to have a really strong posture to hold the energy that's flowing. Otherwise, I'm just going to... Right? I've tried meditating. And until now, I just was too weak. Maybe now I'm getting to the point where I can actually do it. And it says, do it! Yeah, maybe I should. But a person who says they're I've seen people meditate. I've seen them. They sit there, and then they put on music, and then they sit there like this. They make such a face. They're like completely angry. They just sit in their anger and they think they're meditating. Oh, this is really healthy for me. I think what would be healthier for you is to just go outside or do some workout to get rid of that anger first. To drink a little bit less coffee maybe, right? To change your diet. To look at your trauma. To confront all the things that scare you. Because if you're sitting there like this, now I feel really good. That's lying. Now I feel really good, yeah? That's a lie. People sit there, they say they meditate, it's a lie. Because meditation, you can say you're meditating, but you don't feel it, and if you don't feel it, then you're not meditating. That's just how it is. Because it's about connecting to your center. And if you're lying about how you feel, then you're not connected to your center. Because if you would be connected to your center, you'd be telling the truth. And you would say, wait a minute, how do I actually feel? I feel really terrible. So what am I trying to meditate for? Because I want to feel better. Well, then figure out what you want to do right now. Maybe you want to eat something, because meditation is really hard work. And maybe what you need right now is to relax a little. Not in the way that you've relaxed until now. And maybe you have to start strengthening your body to stop smoking cannabis and just start doing push-ups and planks, go hiking a lot. I don't know. You know, the kind of stuff I'm doing, that's for me at the moment, it's the best exercise. From all the stuff that I've done until now, and I've done a lot, I've done calisthenics, I've done running, I've done climbing, I've done all kinds of stuff, and that's the best thing that I found because it trains everything. You know how Spider-Man, you know, if you consider the floor as a wall and you just walk around like a dog, that's the best exercise you can do. And that's why I like that. I don't have to leave the house for this. I'm actually looking forward to it, but I also have to work myself to like it. Because in the beginning, I just hate it. But of course, every day you do it, it gets easier. So sure, meditation can help. But if you're sitting there with, earplugs in your ear because you're trying to keep out all the sounds, I don't think that's really gonna work. Because if you're trying to push out your environment, as soon as you take that stuff out, your environment is back there. So if you do meditate, you should sit there and really take in your environment and accept it. So if you're living in a multi-story house, like with a lot of apartments, and there's cars driving and people make a lot of noise and dogs barking, flies flying around, then what you should do is you sit there and you meditate and you work on it, and at one point all the stuff that you thought was noise beforehand suddenly becomes music. But if you always push that stuff out, how can it ever become music? Because you actually hate all that noise. And so you're trying to run away from it. And so it's constantly irritating you on one level or another. So, that's just being honest. How do I really feel? Because, I just never meditated because I said I actually hate it. But now I feel like I'm quieting down enough that I can actually meditate. But until then, I practiced meditation with my daily routine. So I go, I make a cacao, and then I stand there and then I try to focus on the movement. That when I'm cooking, I'm not in my depression, but I use what I'm doing as a vehicle of meditation. Because meditation, in its essence, is focus. So what are you focusing on? You can focus on your trauma, or you can focus on what you're doing. But when you're doing something, but you're actually focused on your trauma because it's painful or it hurts, then you're always poking into the wound. It hurts so much. I love her, but she left me. Right? That kind of stuff. So instead, you just learn to be in a state of bliss. And sometimes I would do that. Sometimes you just have to push through. So these, the hat that I crocheted, it's like very tight. So you have to realize, how much thread or thin rope, right, went into this. I don't know how many meters, 200 or something, quite a lot. Because one of these things is 50. And I worked with 2 threads, so that's already 100. And that's probably then 200 meters. And then maybe again 50. I don't know. So I was working a lot, that took me a couple of hours. And in between I was sometimes really, really angry. Really angry. But in the end I had a hat. Nice. Whether you like the hat or not, in the end is your problem, right? But in the moment I liked it. Sometimes now I think, But it's a hat, right? It does what a hat does. If I wouldn't have a mirror, I wouldn't know how it looks like. If I wouldn't film myself in the camera, I also wouldn't know how that looks like. So that's just the problem of our times, that we're always looking in the mirror and we think that that can tell us who we are. But I can look in the mirror all day and then I find all kinds of things I can complain about. My nose is weird. Oh no, my hair, I have a monobrow. But that also makes no sense. So you can lie to yourself about how you feel, and you can put on makeup and then you say, now I feel good. But how would you feel without the makeup? Probably really scared to leave the house. Well, that's a challenge right there. To just go to school and put no gel in your hair and just say, that's how I am. And then work with that. I'm just gonna make sure I feel comfortable. There are some people who never put on deo, and they also don't seem to shower, and then they go to school and they really stink. And then you think, why do you stink so much? Right? At least they're honest about stinking, but they could also learn to take care of themselves. And a lot of people, they have really bad sweat. Like their sweat smells really bad simply because of what they eat. It's their diet. They're just toxic in general. So they should just start cleansing. And then they also would have less pimples, right? They would have less smelly farts. They would have less stinky armpits. Because I keep myself quite clean these days. And so the only thing that I need, is bicarbonate of soda and coconut fat, and I rub that in my hand and I put it under my arms, and that never smells. Alright, if I don't put that underneath, it does start to smell a little bit, but not really bad, right? So I'm not really covering up my stench. I'm just making sure that, it doesn't go wild. And then I feel a bit better about it. And I find that is an important step, to simply be honest about how you feel and then just go through with that. But also to make sure, you don't want to make it too easy for people to pick on you, right? Being in school is already hard enough, right? Or going to work. You don't have to look like the asshole that people think you are, or you think you are. You can just start taking care of yourself. I've met people that really wanted to have long hair, but they just didn't want to take care of themselves because they couldn't allow themselves to do that. And so their hair was just always in a bun, and it started to really it became like one giant lump of hair, not even dreadlocks. So at one point I said, to such a person you can only say, why don't you just cut it off? Because if you don't have the time to take care of your hair, then just shave it off. That's what I usually did. If I felt like I don't have time to take care of my hair at the moment, I'll just shave it off. Because then I can focus on other things. Because I don't have the emotional capacity to take care of myself. Then I'm just gonna make that process of taking care of myself real easy, and I'm just gonna shave off my hair. Now I'm letting it grow again. Because I reach now a point where I say, I think now it's gonna work. Because I see how my room has changed, my routines have changed, my habits have changed. So I really feel like, okay, now it's the time. I can let my hair grow again. But yeah, for a while I also didn't want to have long hair because some people confused me with a woman, and that kind of made me feel a little bit uncertain. But that's then in general just people's problem for not being used to men with long hair. And so I just made a choice now I'm gonna try it again. And I'm just gonna see what's gonna happen. So yeah, I think that's roughly what I had to say. I just want to finish it once now. How do we know he's really doing it, right? Maybe he has another one. Well, I can't really help that. I mean, that's just your problem, isn't it? Shh. Okay. Yeah. All right. Let's just give you a chance to see me. You know, to marvel at my prowess, or how you call that. You're gonna think you're doing it wrong. You should do it a bit different. No, I'm also not really fussed, you know. I don't really care how evenly scrambled the cube is. You know, I'm just doing something, and when it feels like now it's more scrambled, then I'm just gonna steal. And sometimes, you know, it's still, every time it's a bit different, because I always have the same method to solve it. But every time I'm doing it, it's still a little different. And that's basically also, you know, every time I go and stand here and I want to dance, every time it's a little bit different. So today what I realized is that I could actually keep on going for much longer. But then I also have to learn how to spend that time. Because if it becomes easier, I have to increase the challenge. Because if I don't do that, then I'm going to get bored and then I won't feel like doing it anymore. So I either have to start doing it longer so that it is a challenge again, or I have to just get used to doing it the same way every time so that I keep the skill. Because I got bored with solving the Rubik's Cube. But you know, it's better to solve the Rubik's Cube than to masturbate, because that actually keeps your mind busy and you can channel the energy rather than to push it out. So that's just what I'm trying to do at the moment. I'm trying to do as many things as I can to keep me busy so that I don't give in to masturbation, because it's only been like now, yeah, okay, I did give in a little. I can't lie about that, but not how I used to. You know, that's already something, because I did stop watching porn. You know, that's a fact. You know, I did switch to listening to moaning women for a while, for 2 days or something. But then also that got boring. But it's a transition, yeah? It's a transition, and that's what you want. You want to work with transition. Right? In the beginning, I was just watching porn and all that hardcore stuff. And then at one point, I transitioned to just, you know, women spending time with themselves. You know, that's already better, because then there's at least no man involved. And then at one point, I stopped doing that as well, because I realized it's just the same shit, you know, because what I really want is to spend time with my wife. And that's just the truth, right? Or if I wouldn't have a wife, I would say, you know, I want to spend time sometimes it's just like, whatever. But you see what I mean? It's really hard to keep focus on what you're. Oh wow. Okay, quiet now. See, and that's, whoa. And that's exactly why I stopped talking so much. You know, when I'm doing something, I just shut up. You know, when I'm busy cooking, I don't have to talk. When I'm eating, I don't have to talk, right? When I'm doing certain things, I don't have to talk. You know, when I sit here and I talk, then I talk. But otherwise, I just shut up. That's just really important to practice silence, yeah? To practice silence is really important. Because if you don't say that much, you also cannot lie as often. So just say nothing. That's what I started doing. I just said nothing. I just said less. Because if you say less, but sometimes people really draw stuff out of you. And sometimes you feel like you have to lie because you don't want to tell the truth. You just say nothing. And people generally make their own stories anyway. Because when they ask you something, often they already have the answer themselves. And if I keep answering people or telling them everything there is, then they cannot figure stuff out for themselves. So in a way, it's really often much better to just shut up so that they can just talk to themselves or talk to other people, you know, that also want to talk, that have nothing better to do than to sit around and talk, like yap, yap, yap. Talk about soccer or something. I mean, you cannot have a conversation that is less meaningful than a conversation about soccer or cars. I mean, how useless. What a waste of time to talk about what kind of car you like. I mean, a car is something that brings you from A to B. That's not something that we have to put on a pedestal because it's making the air toxic. So how good can that be? You know, I don't see people praising Hitler for killing millions of people. But we're praising cars. They're basically doing the same thing. You know, that's how much you can lie to yourself about how good something is. I mean, people used to really celebrate smoking. And if you like movies, you know, there's a movie called Thank You for Smoking. And it shows very clearly how the tobacco industry advertised their products while they were fully aware of the consequences that smoking has on the body, such as cancer and, you know, that the lungs are clogging up. But they didn't care. They were just hiding that. And they weren't even smoking it themselves, but they paid people, like models, that would walk around and smoke and look very cool. And so other people would start smoking as well, because that's how it works. That's how you manipulate people. So no wonder everybody's lying, because that's what everybody does. So you don't have to be ashamed that you have told a lot of lies. You just have to stop lying. And when somebody asks you, just say nothing. Or just say, hey, listen, I think we all want to be loved. And I sometimes made some choices. And I just made up a story that made me look, I thought it would make me look better. But I realized that lying isn't really going to help me anymore at this stage in my life. And if you say that, you know, it's okay. But then you also have to stop lying, because otherwise it's pointless, you know. If you just repeat what I've just said, the effect is basically nil, like zero. You have to really mean that. But, work with transitions. If you've been lying all the time, then you have to also allow yourself, to transition towards being more honest. Because often the problem is also that once people start being really honest, you can also harm yourself with the kind of information you give to people. Some information should be treated as sensitive. I don't say everything on here. I don't say everything on here. I don't talk to you about maybe stuff I've stolen or whatever. I have stolen, but I'm not going to go into detail about everything that I've done here. Not like big things. And it's like very long time ago. Yeah, you can say that. Now I'm stretching the truth a little, but that's okay. Because it's really hard to live in a system like this and then to also acknowledge ownership. Like, who really owns anything? Because everything actually belongs to nature. Like, why can somebody say, this is my apartment, this is my house, this is my phone? I think the phone belongs to the person who makes an effort to have it. I'm not going to run around steal phones from people. Why? Because it's too much trouble. I mean, you have to cover up your tracks and stuff. Generally being a criminal, it's just stupid for me because it seems really tedious. And the chance that in the end you're just gonna land in prison is just really high, and that's something I really, really, really would like to avoid. So I'm not gonna be really stupid. I'm not gonna run around and lie about stuff and steal stuff, and then get myself into trouble. And that's why I want to build myself something that is honest, where I don't have to think about what I say. If I work for the government and I advertise electric cars for to help with climate change, I would have to lie all the time. I couldn't do that. I would hate myself if I would advertise such a shitty product. When I was working in the cinema in the end, I just started to tell people, this stuff is really unhealthy. Like, you probably shouldn't eat this at all. And that's also when I started to become really angry for working there. And that's when I made one day the choice to just never go there anymore. Also didn't care about the money. I just didn't want anything to do with that shit show anymore. If you see how much trash the movie industry generates, and then you see all these Hollywood people, really fancy people. There are people like Leonardo DiCaprio, who's like, yeah, I'm a really good person because I do stuff for the environment. Oh yeah? And do you know how much shit the movie industry produces? I mean, just imagine that. All the things that they use in one movie are literally useless after the movie has been produced. All the posters that they use to advertise the movie is just gonna land in the trash. And these are all trees that have to die for that. And it's like the movie industry is a real shit show. And everybody's just looking at Hollywood, watching the Golden Globes and the Oscars. Yeah. And then we can watch them slap each other in the face. Because they're all idiots. All of them. They're all liars. All of them. That's what they're being paid for. They're being paid to create an image that's fake. That's just how it is. You have people that are acting that are actually 90 years old or maybe 70. They would have wrinkles everywhere. But then they just get makeup and maybe you call that CGI or something, like computer render stuff, and suddenly they look like they're really young. So we also learn to lie from professional liars, because I've been brought up watching movies So you watch movies and you think, oh, that's how I want to be, how that guy. But that guy is telling a lie. And the reason you can tell that is, well, you can tell it. Because you can sometimes hear when somebody says something, you can hear if he really means it. And you can only mean something if you've actually lived it. So when you watch somebody like Leonardo DiCaprio in The Revenant, right? You know, fighting himself out of his own grave, like, you also have to realize that he didn't have to do that. That he's a little princess that has all kinds of people with hot blankets and tea and food, and as soon as he crawls out of that thing, you know, he's gonna wrapped up in a blanket and then he's gonna be brought to a trailer, because the movie itself doesn't exist. It's a lie, it's a fantasy, it's an illusion. And that's what people have to start to understand, that the guy who's playing Thor, you know, people are telling him where to stand. You have to look like this now, right? I mean, inside they're empty, because none of the experiences they pretend to have in a movie are real, because it never happened that way. Never, right? So if I go hiking alone in the woods, it's a completely different story than if I'm being filmed hiking for a movie. Why? Because if I'm going hiking alone in the woods, then I'm alone in the woods and I'm hiking. And I actually have to push through that. I have to carry my own backpack, right? I have to carry the burden of my own fear, of my own choice. But when I'm an actor, I get a script. And in the script, it says exactly where I have to be when. And it says what I have to say. It says how I have to feel about what I have to say. So all I have to do is practice in the mirror the expressions that people generally use when they say something. So you can say like, I love you from the bottom of my heart. Yeah, and you can practice that 10 times in front of the mirror, and then you get it right. And then when the movie comes, you say, I love you from the bottom of my heart. Yeah, but the emotion is fake. It's fake. It's fake. And that's why I like to just talk. You know, I don't like to rehearse things. I don't like to record my songs until they're perfect and there's no mistake. You know, that's why the last song I created today was called Perfect Trap. Because to me, trying to be perfect is a trap. And that's what a lot of people try to do. They try to be perfect. But that's a trap. To be perfect is a trap. And you can see that in the people that stand in the spotlight that are famous. You know, the amount of energy they have to put into upholding this image. And as soon as they step one toe out of line, you know, the mob is like, she's ugly. No, now we've seen it without makeup. Look how ugly she is. She's really old. Well, what do you think? People get older. And putting on makeup doesn't really improve your skin condition, right? Drinking alcohol and snorting cocaine isn't really going to make your body look any younger. So, I mean, alcohol is a toxin that is being produced when food goes bad. You're drinking that. I mean, doesn't that ring a bell? Have you ever seen an alcoholic at the end of his life, or a smoker? I mean, they look like somebody carved lines into their face. They look like I don't know what. So to say that you're fine because you think you have to be perfect all the time is complete bullshit, because you cannot maintain that. You know, at one point I just crashed at the age of 33, 32. At the end of 32, I just crashed because I just couldn't do it anymore. Because I literally hated myself, my life, and everybody in it. And so I simply crashed. And this is where I landed, in my parents' home. So I'm grateful that they let me live here, that I can have this 20 square meter room. I'm really grateful for that. But I also know why I'm here. Because I really crashed. And then I said to myself, fuck that shit. I'm just gonna be honest from now on. If I don't want to do something, I just won't do it. If I don't feel like helping somebody in the way that they want me to help them, then I just say, screw it, Be angry at me, but I don't have time to help you, because I'd rather sit here and make a recording, because that's my best way out of here. Because I know that I have something to share, and it takes a lot of courage, right? At the age of 33, to say, I'm just gonna live in my childhood room until I have successfully worked myself out of here. And I have worked myself nuts, to stay true to the promise I made to myself. Because every time I try to get away from here, by getting another job like that in the cinema, I just start getting angry at myself, and then I say, what the fuck am I doing? Because what I really want is to be here and to produce content. Not just because I have to, but because I really want to. Because that's the life I want to lead. I don't want to be a pretender anymore. I've pretended for so long to like things other people liked. I liked their music because I thought they would like me, but they didn't. Nobody liked me in the end for who I was. Because as soon as I started to show who I was, they didn't like me anymore. So I stopped. And now I barely listen to any music. I make my own music. And I like that much better. It's so nice. But there's people that want to listen to music you make, probably. There's probably people that want to watch the kind of movies you make. There's people that maybe want to read the books that you want to make. And maybe there's people that, I don't know. Not everybody has to be creative. But if you don't want to be creative, then figure out what else you want to be. Because maybe you're already happy the way you are. Maybe you already really like your job. But you think you shouldn't like it because you could do something better. But if you already like what you're doing, then why fiddle around with it? For me, it was very hard to find something that I actually like. I've tried a lot of jobs and I hated them all. Until I realized what I really want to be is self-employed. But you also have to realize that being self-employed puts all the responsibility of everything you do into your own hands. That starts with getting up. What are you going to be self-employed with? There's nobody standing behind you to motivate you. There's only you. There's nobody standing behind you to motivate you. So some people, they just want to be self-employed because they think, that's much easier. No, it isn't. It will be easier once you've done it. And if you really want it, then it's easier. But if you're not serious about it, forget it. You're just gonna be miserable. Right? It's like in that movie, Wish I Was Here. It's a very good example. Wish I was here. On the topic of who are you and what do you really want? Are you chasing a dream that is maybe the dream of somebody else? So you can watch what I'm doing and think, that's what I want to do. But do you really want to do what I'm doing? Because that's a real bitch. That's a real tough challenge. Right? I'm doing it because it turned out that I'm apparently good at it. And so I just kept going. And because my mind is like this, I can do everything at the same time and it works. But I also had to prove that to myself. I had to test myself. Can I actually do it? And at a certain point I realized, holy shit, I can. Now I don't have any excuses anymore. Now I have to push through with it. That was like, yeah, and oh shit, that puts a lot of responsibility into my hands. But I said I'm gonna deal with it. I'm gonna deal with it. And that's why I sit here and I talk for 2 hours or for however long I'm talking. Because I said I made a choice and now I'm gonna stick with it. And that's a tough one. But it's the only choice that I can make that gets me to the place where I want to be, because this is where I feel good, when I can share what I have to say, because I'm good at expressing myself. I express myself in music, I express myself in paintings, I express myself with writing, and I express myself in front of the camera, right? Art, to me, is a form of expression. I can even express myself in movement. But I'm still learning that, right? So dancing at the moment is a challenge for me because I'm not yet quite sure what I'm doing. And, I'm a bit afraid also to be too loud and to get too wild. And I'm also still looking for the right music to dance to. So I'm also working on that, right? So I'm figuring it out. But that's what I want to do, right? I want to keep practicing these things so that I can teach people, right? If you're not good at teaching yourself, then that's not really for you, right? Some people, they need direction. I don't like getting direction. I don't like people telling me what to do. I just want to do it myself. And when you're like this, you just want to do it yourself and figure out what you want to do yourself. I never liked having classes. I just wanted to figure it out for myself. I just want to take a hammer and start hammering, right? I don't want to read a manual about hammering. I never read manuals. If I buy something, I just take it out and then I press buttons and see how it works. That's how I figured out Linux. And if I really need something, I'll look it up. But I never read the instruction manual. Okay, I read it for this one because I didn't manage, but I still figured it out by myself. I didn't go around and ask people, can you teach me how the Rubik's Cube works? No, I just figured it out. And I think actually everybody can do this if they really want to, right? But you have to really want it. If you don't really want it, if you don't want to be honest, then keep lying. But you're going to cheat yourself out of your own happiness. And now you've heard that.